Right, hi there, people. I'm here with the lovely Dan Mangum, who is in America, who is somebody who is a radionics practitioner, and we're here to spread the word and educate people about the world of radionics and how it might help them in their life or surroundings or life experience. And we're going to have a further chat really after the part one video. I was intrigued, Dan, to know what you think. We talked earlier in the first video about human consciousness and intention, and you created a bit of a distinction between that. But I think it would be fascinating to try and explore or hear your side of things of what you think's going on, or what kind of properties are within radionics, what makes it up, or what kind of field are you working in, so to speak. I'm just fascinated to know how you would explain it, but with your kind of knowledge and understanding.
Okay. Well, like I said, I use the quantum physics analogy. Um, two particles entangled together, and then you can separate them by any distance you want. And if you affect one, you affect the other instantaneously,
Mm-hmm.
which according to special and general relativity, that shouldn't work that way, but it does, and there's no way around it because like these experiments, like the double slit experiment is one of the most repeated experiments in science, and it works every time, everywhere they do it.
Okay.
So, these things become entangled, and then you can spread them, but you can affect them at a distance. Whatever you affect this one, something travels all the way to the other one instantaneously and affects it. There's no time lag.
Mm-hmm.
So, and this is what we're seeing in radionics. Now, what we're using, like I said, we call it a witness. You can use a photograph. You can use a lock of hair or things like that. Because that's entangled with you. It's part of you,
Mm-hmm.
or the dog, or you could use a piece of bark off a tree. You can a soil sample from a field. All sorts of things like that.
Uh-huh.
It's entangled with the subject. We call it the subject, where it came from. And then we can use that witness to analyze and get an idea of what's going on. And then we can also use the witness as a targeting mechanism to broadcast.
Mm-hmm.
And we think what it is the scalar field, involved in the antenna. When you send the signal from the instrument through the antenna, and that's where it changes. That's where it becomes weird.
Okay.
This scalar field, this non-electromagnetic field, a standing wave that Tesla will describe. That's that's where the magic happens, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And then it can go anywhere. Like T. Galen Hieronymus, is an American radionic researcher. He developed the Hieronymus style instrument, which is the type of instrument you see here on KRT. It's got banks of two dials as opposed to the type that the original instruments that were developed, and the kind you more commonly see in the UK, will be a base 10 system. They'll just be rows of single dials. They're not banks of two.
Mm-hmm.
Hieronymus was monitoring the Apollo astronauts as they traveled out around the moon and came back. And he could monitor their vital signs, even when it went behind the moon. Now, NASA can't monitor it behind the moon because the radio waves were blocked by the moon.
Right.
So they had to wait until they came back, and then the computer on board was storing that data, and but Hieronymus could monitor it the whole time, and he
Wow.
could, if heart rate was if the hearts were working harder or being, or whatever, we accurately measured it the whole time, and he used it with a photograph
Right.
of the astronauts.
Mm-hmm.
That's
And within that is one dimension of it, very particular, critically analytic questions. Is that about, to my mind, what you're describing? I've got some awareness of dowsing, and I also do something called kinesiology, muscle testing, or muscle response testing. So
yes,
sometimes I would describe it to people that you're doing investigative questions, but it's like flowchart. You ask one question, you get two options, and then you go down here, and then you ask another question. Is it that kind of? Does it lean towards people who are investigators but also analytical?
Well, it's, you pretty much learn at least a form of dowsing in order to do radionics, because the interface is the rub plate.
Right.
It's the stick. Well, in the UK, you'll see people, they'll hold a pendulum over the rub plate, and the pendulum will change motion when the energy changes.
Right. Okay.
In America, we put our hand on it and rub, and when that energy changes, we feel a stick sensation. It's the same thing. It's just two ways of accessing it.
Sure,
I don't know why it's like that. I don't know why it developed two different ways, but it did.
Okay.
But rubbing your hand on the rub plate, that's how you do analysis. I can ask a question. Even without the instrument on, I can put my hand on the rub plate and just ask a question, about something and get a response. That's the form of dowsing. So they're related. And yeah, the radionic analysis, when you're analyzing your subject, it's not the same thing as dowsing, but it is similar.
Okay.
With dowsing, you're asking the subconscious or the collective conscious, or however you want to look at it, the answer to the question. So I mean, you could go through and ask by dowsing about, the plant or whatever, or the soil or the animal. But this is a system that allows you to do it. It allows you to easily focus in on, like if my dog is, having a problem, I could look at the dog's liver. I could look at a particular lobe of the liver. I could look at, the cells in this particular lobe of the liver. I could look at the DNA in the cell in this particular lobe. I can keep narrowing it down and down and down and down. If I have the rates, I can do it very easily and then broadcast to it. It's just, in certain ways, you can get a level of detail and you could put a number on it, and you're not just asking, you're analyzing fields of energy and getting feedback. So dowsing is a little more convenient. You can carry a pendulum around in your pocket. You can't really carry the radionic instrument around in your pocket.
Yeah.
So they're related things. They're not exactly the same, but they are related. You're working with the same types of things. Dowsing, you're still working with human consciousness.
Yeah.
Just like you are with the instrument, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And the way I described the flowchart way of thinking, is that something is that a fair summary of the approach, would you say, or?
Well, it gets personalized by the practitioner. Some people are very, very like flowchart oriented and very, very organized. Other people do it, they kind of do it in a different way. It just has to, the way I look at it, it has to make sense to you. However, whatever your personality and how your mind is, it has to work that way for you. I mean, I can get very analytical.
Right.
I have an analytical mind. I troubleshoot. I'm an electrician, and sometimes I do troubleshooting, and I'm pretty good at troubleshooting. And not everybody's good at everything, but I was good at that. I can apply that same type of mindset to here, but not everybody. Other people have different abilities and different, perspectives. So you use what you have. So, but yeah, it can be like that. Yeah, for sure.
And do you come from like a scientific background, or leaning educationally from science, or?
No.
No.
No, I did good at math. I wasn't, I didn't take a lot of science classes in high school. I took the classes. I didn't do the bare minimum ones. I'm not a super, science leaning person.
Okay.
But I'm also not, like anti-science, and I'm not, like I have like I said, an analytic mind. Math doesn't frighten me, but I'm not heavily leaning into that. But from the time I was very young in early grade school, like I was reading every book I could get on Bigfoot and the Loch Ness Monster and Atlantis and ghosts and UFOs and all the stuff that, the world doesn't believe in, or at least doesn't pay attention to. I was always attracted to that.
Yeah.
So I'm naturally curious. So I've always investigated these things. So a lot of people, radionics is very, it's so new. It's such a different outlook. People have a hard time wrapping their head around it. It takes time.
Okay.
That didn't faze me at all.
Okay.
I thought, well, this is cool. I can do this, and I did,
And I'm guessing if you were working as an electrician, you like to know perhaps how things work, and then understand, like you say, with troubleshooting, how to fix that. Is that
Yeah, yeah. I like, it's, you know, sometimes I get frustrated because I can't see the trail to follow, but I like looking for the trail to follow to find the solution to the problem.
Yeah.
And I can think of things that other people won't think of, or at least not right away, which is part of the reason I was pretty good at it as an electrician, because I wouldn't look at it the way,
Yeah.
conventional thinking looks at it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And radionics just is
Oops.
that another way. Well, that was interesting.
Do apologize. I might have to look back at the video. What happened there at that particular time? My pictures decided to fall off the wall, unfortunately. So what I was intrigued about was when you were talking about some of the ways. I'd quite like to maybe go look at things on a deeper level, and you were talking there as a good segue about being intrigued by the mysteries of the world, and I remember very much at the same age having similar sort of interests. And I think, to my mind, when you're describing some of the success stories or the proof that you've just done about somebody tracking something in space, or even the stuff with the plants, you're describing some almost like deeply magical and mystical things that actually conventional thinking would possibly, if you're really formally conventional, would dismiss. But
Yeah.
when I think of them, I think, well, particularly in this world, we're all interconnected. And so it's fairly simple to understand that one person can be here in the world and the other person can be there. And it's not that complicated to think if we're all, if I know that we're all connected, that doesn't throw me at all that what you're proposing. But I think, to me, you're starting to get more into the magical mystery aspects of some aspects of what we're talking about with ancient mysteries and ancient technologies that perhaps humans used to have. In some ways, do you think we've forgotten some of the things that humans used to be doing, that used to have an affinity for or an ability for?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Like, there's a ton of evidence. There's huge stone structures all over the world and every continent, and I don't think you need giants and aliens to explain them.
No.
Not that I don't believe in extraterrestrials, but I don't think you need things like that to explain things. I think our ancestors did all that. They built those things. They knew things we didn't know. They perceived the world in a different way. It's easy from the modern world to put a modern perspective on those people at the time, but they didn't have a modern perspective. They looked at different things.
Yeah,
So
fascinating.
they could do things. They understood things that we don't, or at least in a way we don't.
Yeah.
So yeah, um, there's a lot to that. I think the world is very different than what we kind of are taught it is.
Sure.
Our history and what humans, are and what we can do. And yeah, I think everything is connected, in many traditions all over the world, say the same thing. Everything's connected, separation is an illusion. And when you think about it, quantum physics isn't that mysterious.
Yeah.
And so the way radionics works isn't really that mysterious if you look at it that way. It only looks that way if you maintain this materialist, what's the word I'm looking for? The scientific, the materialist aspect where the world is just a machine. It's a clockwork mechanism winding down to entropy, and life is just a random, result of chemistry that, and consciousness is just random, chemical signals, and it all just happened to evolve purposely. If you want to maintain that kind of mindset, which I don't think is true at all, then I can see why this seems mysterious. But if you don't look at it that way, then it's not so mysterious and it makes sense.
Sure.
And, the results are there. Hieronymus did that, the Ukeko experiments, they did the agriculture experiments. I've seen things and done things. I know I have friends and colleagues who've done all sorts of things, had all sorts of results, in many ways in their life with radionics. One thing you could call it a coincidence or two, but when, radionics has been around for 100 years. And like I said, governments are using it. I know a woman who used to work for Estee Lauder, the big, company that does cosmetics and things. She was with them for 20 years using radionics to enhance a bunch of their products.
Wow.
Yeah, corporations use this stuff too. They wouldn't be doing that if it didn't work, you
Fascinating.
know.
Yeah, that would make sense. Yeah.
So yeah, it works, it's just you just don't talk about it, you
Yeah.
know.
Okay. Wow. I didn't quite realize that. I mean, I remember reading once that you can put drinks on this, and
Yeah.
which is something I need to do a bit more often. Yeah, truly fascinating stuff there. In America, do you feel that there's like an increased awareness about the potential possibilities that people could explore in this area?
I think so. I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't call it mainstream.
No.
It's definitely more people are coming to the idea that these kinds of things are possible and real. If, for no other reason, a lot of people come to radionics because they have health problems and conventional medicine can't help them.
Right.
And they're at their wits' end,
Yeah.
and
Sure.
looking for something alternative.
Mm.
And you see a lot of people coming to radionics for that reason. Um, I mean, there's more and more people are getting interested in it. Like KRT, it's having a hard time keeping stock on the shelf. They basically selling what they can build. There's a greater interest in it.
That's great to hear. Yeah, so hopefully that's a little bit of a cultural sea change, energetic.
Yeah, and if you look around, at the world in general, people are more open-minded about a lot of things that they used to be. That's just crazy people talk about that, but a lot of that's not so much now. So we're moving in that direction.
Yeah, yeah. And do you think that's primarily because when there's results, people are interested in results?
Hmm.
Yeah,
A lot of people are interested in results. Like people who have health problems, they're interested in results.
yeah,
Farmers are interested in results. Farmers are practical people.
yeah,
May not understand how it works, but if they see that they can do this and
yeah,
they know my crop, they know the difference in the crop, and then they can sell it for more money and there's more of it. They can see they may not care how it works. They just
yeah,
know
yeah,
that it does,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know.
I suppose
Mhm.
that's the interesting thing, isn't it? You might get a whole group of people who don't care, they get the results. Some people might be more analytical and go, oh, I've got to understand and believe this before I can accept the
Mhm.
results. There's almost like a few different models of human thinking that might be around
Yeah.
these things. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, yes, generally speaking, it's growing and a lot of other things too, but it's growing. That viewpoint is changing. So yeah, we're getting there.
Excellent. Well, it's exciting to think that you're a part of that with all your books and the contributions that you've been part of that. I'm thinking about like earlier in the other interview, we talked about the power of color and sound and how you, and I think that would be, to me as a creative artistic person, I would be fascinated to hear your insights on that as to how you see that kind of coming and being a part of what you're doing.
Well, a lot of people use color for things. I don't know if you've ever heard of Dinshaw Gadiali, the creator of the Dinshaw color therapy.
No, I don't think so.
It's he lived in America, but he was from an Indian family, from India.
Yeah,
And but he used very specific shades of colors, red and blue and green and everything
right,
like that. Not just any color. He had developed very specific shades and shining the light through the color gels,
right.
and he was getting amazing results. There's other color therapies, there's that people have used for healing. What's the guy's name? Babbitt, Dr. Babbitt. There's a lot of people have used color and sound. I don't think it surprises anybody, that sound has all sorts of properties. Music, moves,
Mm.
is very powerful.
Yeah,
And the solfeggio tones and Gregorian chant and all sorts of things, like that. There's a lot of power in music.
sure.
And like I said, I just use them as reagents, as things to add to a broadcast.
Okay.
And you can test it, like if like with again with my like with the pear tree example I used earlier. I can I can get a reading on this blight on the leaves and other markers on the tree to see where it is. And then I can put in a color and see, does this color raise it up? Does it lower it? Does it not do anything? And if I look for a color that raises everything up, whoa, this one raises it way up. Okay, that's a good color to use.
Yeah.
Same with a sound, you know. I mean, there's people who play, like I've did some electrical work for a guy who had speakers in his backyard with he could play classical music for all his plants and all his stuff in
Right.
his backyard,
Interesting. Yeah, I get that totally.
Yep, and I could measure, I could take a witness of a plant and measure it, and look at the readings and turn the music on and see, the effect of it.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's the same thing, you can use individual notes, um, just musical notes or the solfeggio tones or something like that. You could use music, there's all sorts of things like that. You can and people do use. You can just literally, on your phone or a computer, run a cable to the input of the instrument and just play a song,
Mm,
and and see how it affects your subject. And then if it really raises everything you want to raise, okay, that's good. And you could add that to the broadcast.
yeah.
So yeah, and I like music and sound because they're very powerful, they're very effective. There's all sorts of things you could sort through to look for to help your broadcast, but you're always going to find a color that works. There's always going to be a sound, music or a note or a tone or something like that that works. So it's a very easy thing. They're very effective, they're very powerful, and you can use them very easily. That's why I like them.
Okay. Are you somebody who is a musician or listens to music a lot?
I don't listen to it a lot, and I'm not a musician.
Okay.
The only thing I play is the stereo, but
Okay.
uh, it's for the research, I studied some music theory. I
Okay.
had to learn. I had to learn a little bit. Like I wanted to learn more about this debate in music about tuning instruments to 432 as opposed to tuning it in 440.
Yeah, yeah.
So I had to learn what tuning was, and intervals, all that kind of thing was
Mhm.
in order to understand what they were talking about.
Sure,
So.
yeah. Yeah.
But then I could measure the results of everything. And yes, 432 is a much more life-affirming frequency than 440 hertz is. Yeah, you probably maybe most people probably can't hear the difference, but I can measure the difference. So music tuned that way with different frequencies does affect you differently, even if you can't hear the difference, although some people can hear the difference. And that's one thing you can do with radionics. You can check things like that.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, it sounds like what you're describing as a pretty limitless potential of usages and inquiry with radionics.
Oh yeah,
Is it only limited by your creative thinking?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. You can, like I said, there's people who analyze their motors and systems on a truck or a tractor.
yeah.
I've used it to analyze. I live off grid. I have solar power and a battery bank. I've used radionics to analyze my battery bank to look for problems in the battery I was experiencing and broadcasting to it to fix it. It
Amazing.
doesn't have to be. I mean, that's not what people do, but you can use it for that. Just as much as you can use it for animals, plants, or soil.
Yeah.
You know. But yeah, it interfaces with all sorts of things, any kind of energy modality. There's a lot of radionic practitioners or Reiki people,
Yeah.
like biodynamic agriculture, like I was saying, you can broadcast, you can use this to enhance doing biodynamic agriculture practices. Um,
I mean, do you ever use it for? I mean, one of the ways when I do muscle response testing, which I think is very similar in mindset to what you're describing, I kind of use it as my truth filter about like asking questions about the validity of information, people, organizations. Is that something that you feel is like similar usage with
yeah,
radionics?
you could do that. You have to get a little creative, but you can do it. Like, I'll give you a good example. Was at the end of 2024 and the beginning of 2025, we suddenly started seeing all these weird things in the sky that the news was calling drones, even though they were obviously not drones that you and I can buy. But they were talking about it. They were all over the US and in other countries. And then people were also saying there's these orbs you're seeing too, these glowing orbs of light we were also seeing. And everybody was talking about all that stuff. Well, I used my instrument to take a look at those things to see what I could figure out. I wanted to know what's going on because
Wow.
obviously we weren't getting the full story from the news and the government.
Okay.
They obviously knew things they weren't telling us. I don't think that surprises. I don't think that's a controversial statement.
Okay.
Um, So I looked into it. So I took photographs of some of these vehicles that they were calling drones, and I took photographs of some of the orbs, and I was analyzing them. And like for the just for the those vehicles that they were calling drones, I was analyzing them for gasoline, jet fuel, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't find any. If I analyze a truck or a car, or for gasoline or diesel or jet fuel or an airplane, I'll get that readings for it. I don't get readings for it. I did get readings for radioactivity. I got readings for I think it was uranium. So that whatever they were, they appeared to me to be nuclear powered,
Wow.
some kind of nuclear power in them. And then the orbs, I got several different types of readings. Some of them I didn't get readings on, they weren't radioactive like that, but they did get very strong electromagnetic fields, very strong electromagnetic fields. And others didn't have, some of those orbs did not have electromagnetic fields, not like that. I'm not sure what they were. So there was, in my mind, there's at least 3 different things up in the sky like
Okay.
that. So it didn't tell me what exactly was going on, but it gave me some information, and I was curious. I was just curious to see, what can I learn about this? And I have this device on my desk,
Yeah.
I can analyze it, and it's just an example of a creative way that you can use this to figure things out.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's all sorts of other things, Here's another example. I recently, Pope Francis passed away. We had a papal election. So I used it. It's hard to try to predict who the Pope is going to be, because you've got 113 people in that room, and any one of them could be the Pope. And technically, any male Catholic, any baptized male Catholic can be the Pope. But I did use my instrument to accurately predict when we would know who the new Pope was. And I had it I nailed it right down, right? I did it on a Monday, I think it was, by analysis, and I think I said it'll be Thursday in the late afternoon. And that following Thursday in the late afternoon is when we saw the white smoke. And I was just analyzing the emotional state of the crowd
Okay.
in the square. And once I saw that go up, okay, they're all waiting. They're going to be excited when we have a new Pope. And I just analyzed it in the future. Okay, Tuesday morning, Tuesday afternoon,
Okay. Wow.
Wednesday morning, Wednesday afternoon, Thursday, boom, there's the spike. Okay, that's when it's going to happen. Because
So,
just like you're not confined by space, if you're not restricted by space, you're not restricted by time.
wow.
So I can analyze into the future like that and see. Now, that's not something that I would teach in a basic radionics class at the beginning, fundamentals, but that's something that you can do with radionics.
Yeah, that's quite incredible what you just described there. Yeah.
So yeah, you can use it to try to figure things out,
Yeah, I mean, fantastic that that depth of that depth of limitless thinking that you've got to just go, oh, set of questions. How would I get some deeper knowledge?
Yeah.
And yeah, fascinating. I'm sure people watching would be, inquisitive people would be absolutely fascinated. So, with regards to your books, I can see that if people wanted to buy your books, it's easy to buy in the US. But if the people are abroad, do they have to?
No, they're easy to buy. You can get them on Amazon,
Okay.
which is available everywhere. And if you don't like to buy from Amazon, and I don't blame you because I don't like to buy from Amazon, but they're also available on the Lulu bookstore, which is just an online.
Right. Okay.
My books are self-published. Both of those, Amazon and Lulu, have a self-publishing platform. So I have them on both. So if you don't want to buy from Amazon, you can buy from Lulu, but you can buy them
And
all over the.
you can buy like electronic ebook versions of them,
No,
or
I don't have ebook versions yet.
okay.
I'm working
Okay.
on it. It's kind of tricky to get ebooks to.
Right.
It shouldn't be. Seems to me it shouldn't be as hard to get the ebook formatted right so it looks good, but it's
Yeah.
tricky to do that. And I'm sorry, I'm not a huge fan of ebooks. I don't read
Okay.
ebooks,
Fair enough.
but so it hasn't been a huge priority. But I'm trying to work in that direction of get some ebooks available because I know some people do like it. So, but right now it's just print copies.
Well, I'm going to be having a look at buying your paperback books because I certainly feel like from chatting to you, there's more about your mind that I would certainly like to kind of look at. In a sort of email exchange we had, you said that you're also quite interested in the being a scholar of magic and mysticism and kind of that kind of side of it
Mhm.
intrigues you. And do you see that that has a relationship with the world of radionics and the way that what would you see the overlap would be or the
Oh
connection?
yeah. Well, with radionics, we're trying to use our consciousness and our intent to affect a change in the world.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you do with magic.
Mm-hmm.
That's what people are attempting to do with magic. That's one thing.
Yeah.
You know, that's the thing most people think about when you think of magic.
Mm-hmm.
People do, and I view it as a very similar process. It's just using modern tools, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's in my viewpoint. Now think about it. You have in radionics, I have a photograph or a lock of hair, and that's the witness. It's tied to
Yeah. Yeah.
or a sample or something. It's tied to what I'm trying to analyze and affect.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, a voodoo doll is the same thing. It's just a humanoid shape, and you put a
Yeah.
lock of hair or a piece of clothing from somebody or something from that person in it, and now this is now tied to that person. So whatever you do to this, you're doing to that. It's
Yeah.
the same idea. It's that same entanglement.
Yeah, it was
Same idea.
that was the example straight away that was triggered in my head. So I'm glad you kind of verified it. But yeah, so in effect, you're talking about a modern way with modern technology to do things that have been known for millennia by ancient
Right.
and people who've published all sorts of books on these things. So it's
Mhm.
almost like two whole worlds kind of coming together in a more kind of but with a different kind of presentation. So it's
Right. Mhm.
yeah, yeah. And so
Yeah,
there's
and you do the same thing, in magic, you collect stones and different things that, are related to the effect you're trying to bring into the world. These
mhm,
are the relations we're using in radionics. It's the same thing.
yeah,
Different terminology, different tools, same idea.
yeah. So what excites me about that, there could be multiple people from different types of communities all doing things that they don't know that this exists, but they're really
Mhm.
good at doing this thing. And it fascinates me on a human level that there's all sorts of different communities who've come in at different entrance points, but to the same technology about human consciousness, intention, the power that we're all connected. To me, that's like quite an exciting, juicy thing to
Yeah,
consider and ponder, isn't it?
yeah, it is,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And this is just, I view this as just like the modern perspective on this sort of thing. Like I was
yeah,
talking
yeah.
about earlier, not putting the modern perspective on people a long time ago.
Mm,
We're talking about the same kinds of things, but this is like a modern perspective, the way a modern lens to look through it, because, you know, of technology, technology is we have a different type of technology now than, 1,000 years ago or whatever. And people are, more people are have access to technology and more people are more educated now. So this looks modern, so it looks attractive to people.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's fascinating when we're talking about technology, and maybe we're waking up to technology that our older generations had, and that's becoming
Yeah.
away, available to us. But it's only limited. Our approach is only limited by our thinking. What
Mhm.
you just described, just a perfect example of how, with an expansive mind or way of thinking, you can get really fascinating results back.
Yeah.
Um,
And if you're doing this,
mm,
you're exercising that part of you. You're exercising this consciousness. It's like so you're developing it in a way. You're opening yourself up to new ideas and
yeah,
different energy patterns and different thought processes. So it's going to change you and make you grow.
yeah. Would you resonate with the idea that when perhaps if you're doing this type of approach, that the more and more you do it, you might access higher levels of consciousness by the repeated practice of things, like a discipline almost?
Yeah, because it's well, I liken it to just like doing physical exercise. Only with this, you're working your psychic muscles, so to speak.
Yeah,
It's
interesting.
so
Yeah,
yeah. So yeah, you'll get better at it. The instrument works with what you have, but it
yeah,
it amplifies your abilities. But the more you use it,
yeah,
the more your abilities will grow, and then there's a higher starting point for this to amplify.
yeah,
So to speak. So you keep progressing and going. Yeah, and it does open your mind. You start thinking of things differently. And it's attractive to a certain kind of person. I don't personally know of anybody that's an atheist doing this.
Okay.
Everybody has some kind of spiritual belief,
Yeah.
whether it's Christianity or Buddhism or some kind of non-denominational, non-religious spiritual ideas. Everybody I know has something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's just going to open your mind more and more to more things like that,
Yeah.
because when you do this work. So yeah, I think I think there's it works like that.
What do you think? This is my last question because we've got about 3 minutes left. But what do you think water plays in the whole affair of what we were talking about? Do you think water is an interesting component part of it all? Do you think? Or
Water is interesting. It's a liquid crystal. It stores information. It has memory. Um, we use water in radionics. You can imprint radionic, intentions and signals and energies into water, and then you could put that on the plant and you could drink it or whatever you do. And that's another way of delivering that energy.
mm,
You could, you can use it to store energy and then use that energy as a reagent, in a broadcast later.
okay,
I know a woman who works with agriculture for people, big, agriculture work, and if she's working on a piece of property, if there's a body of water nearby, she'll broadcast to the water because she can get the water to send it out and amplify it to the land around where
no,
she's trying to affect. So
nice.
yeah, yeah, there's a lot to water.
Yeah. What was in my thinking was that when we are speaking and talking, because there's water particles in the air, that everything that we say is being
Mhm.
stored into that consciousness of water. And that might explain also how certain types of deeper magical, mystical things happen, because we're speaking into the consciousness of, divine source creation with every word that we say. It was that kind of,
Yeah.
there was,
Well, our bodies are 70% water,
of course, yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, well,
or more.
I think that's a beautiful spot to kind of wind up and press stop. I want to send my gratitude for the beautiful high vibration chat and really enjoy
Oh, welcome.
chatting to you and meeting you.
Thanks. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, please send me your links, and I'll put lots of links to how people can find out more about you and your work and radionics in the countries that they live in.
Okay, I can do that.
Lovely. Okay, I wish you have a beautiful day then.
Yeah, you too.
All right, take care. Thank you.